Okay.
Good evening and welcome to Limerick Planning Board meeting for April 17th, 2024. Please stand for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have some minutes to approve for March 20th. Is there a motion?
Yeah, a motion to approve minutes for March 20th.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Okay. So all in favor? It's unanimous. We have some walk-ins. We have John Diane Medici with a subdivision. Can you close that door?
So the project we're proposing is down on what we call Carroll Beach, which is just behind the JB Carroll gas station. I've been discussing it with Stan and on off with Aaron for a couple of months. And there was some question around the best way to handle it. And there was some thought it had to be a subdivision. It didn't have to be a subdivision. We've come to the determination that under LD 2003, because the property is on water and sewer, what we're proposing is 4 cottages. There'll be condominium units and sold individually, along with 1 accessory dwelling unit that will be held by us as the declarant of the condominium association. So, LD 2003 certainly comes into play, which allows the 4 units. Our own zoning allows an accessory dwelling unit, which will be under the 900 square feet that is in the zoning. So really it's our belief that Stan can write the permit, that it doesn't need a subdivision. We're here to explain what we're doing. Stan wanted you guys to hear it out. The fact that it's going to be condominiums doesn't come into play because according to the Maine Condominium Act, no zoning board or town can decline condominium status. It's kind of new for the town of Limerick. I know of 1 other building in Limerick that was condominiumized. I don't know if there's others. I know of 1. That was done quite a while ago. I don't know of any others. So our zoning doesn't touch on condominiums. So there's nothing to go down that road with. LD 2003 is clear. It's a lot that was created after June 23rd of 2023. And it's allowed 4 units. And our zoning allows the accessory dwelling unit. We mapping it out, the 5 fit nicely, and we can still meet all the setbacks because we still have to meet all the same setbacks. To meet those, 5 work comfortably. We could have probably squeezed in a few more. 5 seems to work. So, here tonight just to explain what we're doing. After reaching out to the attorney that's going to create the condominium documents for us, he reviewed all the zoning, reviewed LD 2003, and said it's pretty straightforward. So,
anyone on the board have questions for John? Stan, would you mind taking the podium and just kind of explaining your position on this so we get kind of the both sides? So.
I have discussed LD 2003 on a few different meetings, but LD 2003 will be effective in July 1st, 2024. So that allows anyone on public water and sewer to have up to 4 units on a lot, as long as they can make the setbacks. We did not revise our setbacks per dwelling, so that doesn't fall into play in this case. But anything that's 3 or more dwellings still is a subdivision, needs to go through review. The LD 2000 was very clear that they were not going to circumvent the subdivision regulations. The other thing is the towns and municipalities cannot refuse to do it as long as they meet the criteria of the ordinance. So what John is proposing does fall under the ordinance. Some of the things we need to look at is it going to create a burden on the water and sewer district, which at this point from my research, it will not in that area. So, but John is very much within the law of, or the intent of LD 2003.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Stan on this? So, is this something we should check with them to be sure of the subdivision or not? I think we should just make sure that if we do need a subdivision, that's fine. If we don't, then that's fine too. I feel like we should reach out to Ben and just check on that and make sure that is the case. And if that's the case, then I guess we don't need to see her again. Does that seem reasonable? Is that?
It is, and one of the other criteria is because we don't have individual setbacks on per dwellings, is there may be a requirement, and this is why it goes through the subdivision review, is if there's a maintenance agreement between the sharing buildings, dwellings. So, but I will double check with Ben and Natalie to make sure that I'm accurate on that.
Okay. Are you satisfied with that?
Yeah, so setting up with the 5, we still meet setbacks, even between dwellings, so that wouldn't be an issue. I guess, LD 2003 is pretty clear. I guess if you...
I don't know anything about it at this point. So.
In a way to increase housing, the state of Maine.
Yeah, it isn't very likely, but it is to promote more dwellings for the criteria, because the state is basically 80,000 homes in need. So.
The only question I have is whether it needs to go through a subdivision review, because we just made a building that had 3 units go through a subdivision review, and I want to just make sure that that's clear, so.
And we'll
how
get more
it's
clarity
different.
on that, but again, the law says 3 or more is a subdivision, so whether it's a dwelling, lots, or parcels, 3 is the trigger, but we'll get clarity on that. The town and municipalities, again, and I'll repeat this, have very stringent rules as far as they cannot deny it as long as they meet all of the ordinance standards. And John has met, according to the plans that I've seen, met all of the setbacks and everything.
Basically, LD 2003 is a lot without a dwelling unit already on it, can have 4 units if it is either within a designated growth area under a comprehensive plan, which we don't have, or served by a water system and sewer in a municipality without a comprehensive plan. So we'll have to pump, but we're gonna get on the public water and sewer along Route 11.
So how does the rest of the board feel on that? Are we okay with having Stan check in with the lawyer and?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
assume if Stan finds that he's all set, I don't need to come back and he can issue the permit.
That's correct.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Okay, we also have, Mr. Ham is here. I'd like to just, kind of move, Deerfield up first. That's, Joe Stanley. And then we'll get a chance to Jared after that.
Bottom posted board here. Some of you got 1 by 17 versions of this, so
I think I
if
might
you'd
have
like,
it.
I can place some of the bigger ones out if you want to be able to see it easier, or if that's just gonna be too cumbersome because it's this time.
No, this is,
Yeah.
yes.
You're all set for that one?
Come off that way.
It's going well. There, I think we've got it. Okay, good evening. I am Joe Stanley here with Limerick Land Surveying. I'm representing Mr. Bryce Legier. This is a project the board has seen already at one meeting. What we are proposing to do up on Range E Road is create 2 lots with access, driveway access to Range E Road, and then create a private way to serve a single lot in the rear. Since the last meeting, we've done a few modifications to the plan based on the latest ordinance that the town has passed and some of the review comments from the last meeting. We've added some proposed building locations, areas that would make sense relative to where the soils test pits logs were taken. We've widened the width of the end of the turnaround to 60 feet to meet the new ordinance. And then we've also, your new ordinance speaks to a bit of a protection area around any sort of drainage runs, so we've added sort of 30-foot drainage easement, around that particular feature, just to help to protect it in the future, make sure there's no issues there. Besides that, I don't think we've made many more modifications. We did confirm, Aaron, and we now have the numbers on the plan, that at the proposed Lot 1, there is enough square footage and road frontage outside of the proposed private way to meet that standard without using any of the land within that 50-foot strip.
Okay.
Beyond that,
So, as far as wetlands, it wasn't necessary to have that on the plan,
it didn't appear to us, but we figured that would come up in part of the discussion today. Your new ordinance identifies those areas as marshes, bogs, more of that idea rather than the saturated soils that we're seeing along this drainage area. So, and there's nothing shown on your shoreline zoning map or on the National Wetlands and Victoria maps of the area.
Okay.
So to date, we have not sent a wetland specialist out there to do any additional mapping. I did speak to Ken Gardner a little bit about the topic, because usually the wetlands that we are dealing with fall into 2 categories, either your freshwater wetlands like your marshes, bogs, that sort of thing, marsh grasses, or forested wetlands, and this is sort of neither, anything that might be apparent up here. So Ken did give me a bit of an education on those, and just if there were some sort of mapping that the board and the town felt necessary here, that it would be done by trying to identify the different types of grasses out in those hay fields. And he said it's quite a bit trickier than your normal situation if we were going to investigate that further.
Okay. We had scheduled this for a sidewalk. Is the board okay with scheduling another sidewalk with us and get it done?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Next meeting is May 1st. Does anybody have an interest of having a site walk that day prior to the meeting or a different day? You're available May 1st? Okay. 4:30, 5, 5:30? What are you thinking?
After 5 would be afternoon.
After 5 for you? Okay, we schedule at 5? Okay. So. And then we'll schedule the public hearing the same day in the evening at 7. So site walk.
What is the address on Range you wrote again?
Is there an address or?
I'm not aware of one that's been assigned to the property since there's no structure.
It's just immediately after.
It's not far
Foster
west
Road.
of Foster Road.
Okay.
And
I didn't think
if you
West
get
Foster.
close, we have a sea of wooden stakes out in the middle of that field now. It's
All right.
difficult to miss.
Site walk at 5.
I'll show up right at 5 and look for all the cars.
Usually works. Okay. So I'm all set with Joe. Is anyone else have any questions for him or? Okay. Sorry, we got that last one canceled. We canceled the last one, but I think it worked out better getting a little more information done. So.
Yeah, it was great. It gave us time to review the new ordinance in a little more detail as well. So,
Okay. Thank you.
excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. We also have Mr. Ham here to discuss his subdivision.
Good evening, Eddie Moore from BH2M, also with me is the applicant, Leanne. So we're here to discuss 38E Alair Road, the 1.38 acre parcel zoned residential. As the board, I'm sure, is aware, the applicant purchased this parcel in July of '23. Looking to split this parcel into 2 lots. There are currently 2 houses on that, as shown on that plan you guys have in front of you there. Because of splitting this lot within 5 years of purchasing it, it triggers a subdivision, which is why we're here this evening. We have shown on our plan a 50-foot access easement along the driveway, providing access to lot 2 as you look at the plan. This is proposed as a private way. Applicant doesn't have any intentions of making that a public road. Would like to keep it a private road. We have proposed some improvements for a hammerhead turnaround. As you can see, kind of between lots 1 and 2, that dark hatched area is what's proposed for a hammerhead turnaround. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it back to you. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Okay, my first question is, the second lot, how does it get 175 feet of frontage
Yeah.
on the proposed road, proposed private road?
Yeah, so if you add up E6, E5, E4, and then the 2251 on the side, it has a total of 17251 frontage.
So it's counting the turnaround?
Correct, yes.
Okay. E6, E5, E4.
And then the 2251, I believe it says there on the end of the hammerhead there.
Where's E6?
E6 is at the end of the road here.
Oh, okay, oh, okay, all right, I got you.
So it's 50, 50, 50, and then 22, 51.
Okay.
100 feet of frontage required, he's got 172, 51.
Stan, does the proposed turnaround meet the requirements, or are you comfortable with the way it's drawn?
Yes.
Okay. The size of both lots is, without the road, meets the proper lot size.
So, in my lot description, I give you two numbers. I give you, the first number is including the lot, including the road. The second number is not including the roadway. So lot 1, if the roadway needs to be deducted, does not meet the size requirements. It's required to be 22.5. We're currently at 18.134. That lot can certainly be modified to meet that requirement if that's something the board is going to require of the applicant. The lot line, as it's drawn now between the two lots, we really just drew that. We were trying to go down the center line of the existing trees to keep that buffer between the two lots. There's really not a whole lot of rhyme or reason to that lot. It could be modified if needed.
So, my concern is that if this road, if someone decided in the future that they wanted to make this a public road and deed that to the town, it would make this a non-conforming, this first lot a non-conforming lot.
Correct.
So, it's my belief that it should be a conforming lot with excluding the driveway or the road or whatever. How does the rest of the board feel?
So I guess, what's the process to deed a private way like that to the town? Is that,
They would petition the town to take over the road. The town would vote to accept, and then they would take over and maintain the road. Is that correct? Did I miss any step?
It is correct. The other stipulation is the town can accept the road because you cannot legally make a non-conforming lot by state statute at this point. So one of the other things it could be put in both deeds that can never be a town right of way in making a non-conforming lot. The other stipulation is at the end of the hammerhead is there needs to be a sign posted there that's for no parking emergency vehicles only.
At the end of the hammerhead?
Yes.
Down here? Got it.
so they wouldn't be able to park right in front of their house?
No, I think
The hammerheads are very strictly for emergency vehicles to turn around because they're not supposed to by law back up. They don't have the visibility.
Gotcha.
And what's been happening in most hammerheads is people are using them to store their utility trailers, their stuff.
Yeah.
So it's, rather than the town taking the burden on and putting the signs up and trying to enforce it, is just to have, when you do a subdivision, have them post it, that's for emergency vehicles only.
where would there be a driveway in that?
So are we talking this already here or here? Because,
Actually, both of them would be considered part of the hammerhead.
okay.
So where would would there be a vehicle parking?
The driveway is actually in front of the house, the hammerhead is not the driveway.
So the light dashed line is the existing driveway in here. This is the existing driveway to this house here.
But that's part of the hammerhead, correct?
So everything
No,
that's,
the hammerhead's between both dwellings.
Right, but then when you drive a vehicle, and it has to be clear in the front, and it also has to be clear into the hammerhead.
Right, but where they back into the actual turnaround, that should be posted no parking.
Yeah, but
That's the
what,
important part.
what would the whole point of having a hammerhead be if you couldn't drive a vehicle to the end and then back into the hammerhead? There's no
Well,
point,
that-
there's no
that's
point in having it, that, if that's the case.
I understand where you're going, but most emergency vehicles drive in, so they're gonna drive in straight forward, right up to the driveway. And then they're gonna back into the hammerhead. So that's the whole purpose of the hammerhead. And the hammerhead can't be used for anything else. They need to be able to back in.
I understand, but if there's vehicles parked in the end of that road, then they can't back into the hammerhead.
Like they could
The
pull far
driveway-
forward.
The driveway isn't part of the right of way. The right of way is still 50 feet, and then they have a driveway off of that. But they
They-
should not be parking in.
In either the road or the
Correct,
hammerhead,
yeah.
okay. Okay.
Hammerhead not big enough? According to you?
I think the size of it is actually this bigger section.
Oh, okay.
They're proposing it a little bit smaller to meet this condition, meet this. So what would you do in order to make this lot meet the?
Well, if that was the case, and to Stan's point, I don't think the applicant would be fine to put a note even on the plan that said, you know, this road needs to remain private and can't be made a public road.
that in the deed if you want, so.
We could put it on the recorded plan as well. But if we were to make this lot, we need to add about 4,000 square feet. We could take this property line and kind of tweak it. It may end up where this property line ends up doing something like this. So this would be lot 1, this would be lot 2. Yeah, it doesn't make for, you know, a clean break there.
And the other option is if the homeowners decide that they want to approach the town, then that first lot would have to purchase property off a abutting lot to make it conforming. But by statute, you cannot make a non-conforming lot anymore. And if it's in the deed, even though we can't enforce deed restrictions, it makes us aware because we have to prove right title and interest before permits are issued.
So the applicant intends to pave everything, including the hammerhead? Is that correct?
No.
Is it has, in order to have it as frontage, you need to have it meet the town standards. So you can't use it as frontage and not meet the town standards. So it has to be paved and it has to meet all those.
Private ways have to be paved.
They do. If you can use it as your road frontage, you have to have it paved, you have to have it meet all those standards. So I guess I'm not super comfortable with doing it this way, but I guess I think that it would be best to put it into the deed that this can never be a public way.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree, but I would rather avoid doing whatever that is where you get like a.
Yeah, I agree,
case, so,
I agree. So that's my reasoning for this.
Would the board like me to add a note to the plan that says this needs to remain a private way unless lot 1 could be made bigger to meet the minimum zoning requirements, something along those lines?
Okay.
Yeah, but we wouldn't accept it as a road if it was gonna create a non-conforming lot anyway.
Right.
Mhm.
If the subdivider puts that in the deed, doesn't that mean that he has to police it?
Yes.
So he would have to police it.
Well,
If he puts a restriction in the
Unless,
deed.
unless he deeds it to both of the parties, right? Or
and it should be deeded to both.
somehow there's gotta be an agreement with them
Yeah.
to deal with that.
That there has to be.
Otherwise, he would have to police it. I know we ran into that.
Yeah, the other thing in the deed is as far as the maintenance of the road, it has to be deeded to both
Yeah.
parties. So that will eliminate any conflict between property owners. So I've already talked to Bill about that, and I spoke to Bill about the paving. He could ask for waiver, whether the board
Not yet, cause problems, that's what it is.
So how does the rest of the board feel? I kind of stated how I feel,
Yeah, I think, I'm okay with what we kind of proposed, adding it to the deed. I do have concerns about just I'd like to see this and understand the hammerhead a little bit better. I think I kind of agree with you where it seems unrealistic that people wouldn't park at kind of the end of this where an emergency vehicle would need to pull up. But again, like, it's just hard to see from the site plan, so maybe seeing it in person would help. But I think that's my major concern there.
okay. And one of my other concerns was to make sure that that the dwellings met the setbacks. And Stan assured me that they do, so they have the required setbacks. I didn't know if there was a front setback, and Stan said not at this point, so it can be almost right up against the road, so.
I assume this is public water, right?
Town water,
Yes,
town water,
yes.
yes.
No septic, like sewer as well?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, there is.
you would put a note on the plan regarding the road and a note regarding somehow the joint ownership of that road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you okay with us not being involved in a road maintenance agreement? I really don't want to be.
I move up here so I'm in view of the cameras, but,
You can have a seat if you want.
yeah, I'm gonna sit there.
If you're not in the view of the camera, Stan,
You're still not in the view of the camera?
still not in the view of the camera.
I'm not photogenic. But anyway, yes, I am, and as long as we have the restrictions on I still call them MyLaws, but the plot plans, and then it's finalized. Again, you can email them to us and we can print them off so the board can sign them.
Great.
But the hammerhead really does need to be posted, emergency vehicles only.
Yep.
I can enforce that, that's $50 fine the first time, $100 the second time, and then it's court after that, so.
Sounds fun.
Do we want to set up another sidewalk?
Yeah.
Mike, you said after 5, right?
Yeah.
Are you okay with like 5:30?
Yeah, I can
So we can do 5:30 right up,
What are we talking, May 1st?
May 1st? Would that work?
Yeah, I put that.
And then your public hearing will be immediately following.
Great.
The other one. So is that okay to advertise it that way, Joanne?
Yeah.
And does that give us,
Following Deerfield.
yeah, and that gives us plenty of time to advertise, is that correct?
Yeah.
Stan, when would you like to see these revised plans in advance of that meeting?
What's that?
When would you like to see revised plans in advance of that meeting?
As soon as you can do them,
Okay,
that way it will allow the board to sign them.
gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions for him? No? Okay. All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Stan, when you're ready, the addendum,
Yeah.
can you take the podium, please?
Yes, sir. So the addendum or the amendment to the conditional use for 41 Range Road, at the last planning board meeting, the board considered and approved certain conditions, which Sean has agreed. I have provided a plot plan and colored it so that everybody has an understanding as to what he is committed to. You should have a, yeah, there it is right there. He's placing a berm on the easterly side, which is the blue lot side, that's about 8 feet in height, and he's going to plant a minimum of 4 rows on one side, 4 rows on the other side, so that berm will be completely covered with trees. And on the easterly side, you'll also notice that I put in the corner of the rear of the lot, that is a natural ravine, and the runoff on that side of the lot naturally goes that way. So we don't want, and then conferring with Aaron, we don't want any alterations with the berm or any further to the lot line, because it will alter the runoff to that natural retention area and buffer, if you will. So on the front of the lot where the fence is, and the westerly side, which is the Carroll side, there is the fence. He's agreed to paint it a forest green or a dark green. He is going to plant more rows of trees all the way around the front and the sides. He is also committed to making the areas that are 1.7 to 2.1 slope. And I did also on that map indicate where the approximate location of the well is, so that you guys are aware of that.
Okay. So, I talked to Stan a little while ago. I was busy today, so I didn't get a chance to review this. One thing that I said that we had to do was we had to make sure that each of these addendum items was tied to a specific condition.
Yeah.
And Stan went through and did that, so,
So please destroy the one that you had earlier. This amendment does specify, I can actually read these terms if you want, Aaron, if you prefer. But the first amendment, a berm of at least 8 feet in height shall be constructed and maintained along the easterly boundary of the property for a minimum of 140 feet with trees planted in a staggering arrangement to maintain a natural buffer and proper runoff. If any trees die, they shall be replaced. In addition to conditional use number 9, makes provisions for the buffers on-site landscaping which provide protection to the neighboring properties from detrimental features of development. And there's a typo there, I got 2 froms. So item number 2, a metal fence of at least 8 feet in height shall be constructed along the westerly boundary of the property, a minimum of 180 feet, and shall be painted a forest green or dark green to blend harmoniously with the trees. In addition to conditional use number 9, makes provisions for the buffers on-site landscaping which provide protection to the neighboring properties from detrimental features of development. A buffer of evergreen trees shall be constructed between the fence and the westerly boundary, planted in a staggering arrangement to create a natural buffer between the fence and the westerly boundary. Such trees shall have a minimum mature height of at least 15 feet. If any trees die, they shall be replaced. In addition to conditional use number 5, no structures or other site elements shall be built or maintained within 35 foot inside westerly fence. It also should say easterly, which I'll fix, which is the rear of the building, to maintain a fire lane. And Sean has agreed to maintain those fire lanes, which was part of the fire chief's report when he did for the original conditional use.
okay.
Karen, before you sign that, you probably should do another vote, because you voted the other night that you're only gonna take up the berm on the blue lot side, and you weren't gonna do anything about the fencing or anything.
There is no fence on the blue lot side. It's just on the front and on the Carroll side.
We are not voting today on anything to do with the fence. The only thing we have voted on today is for Stan to come up with an agreement about the berm on the blue lot side.
So I just want to make sure that we don't negate any of the work that we did prior to this. Any of the conditions that are already approved. That's my concern. And so the map, I want to make sure that we're not agreeing to anything that wasn't previously agreed to in the previous
And
16
that is
conditions
why
and the 3 performance standards.
Yep, and that's why I color coded it to make it very clear as what the intent and the expectations are.
Okay. What does the rest of the board, how does the rest of the board feel on this?
So I guess my concern is the permit for this is already confusing and contradicts itself in a couple places. At one point, we talk about fence and the findings of fact, and it's not metal, it's not, we don't specify what it needs to be. So I'd like to maybe, not specifically call it a metal fence here to avoid any potential conflict with his permit itself. Again, I don't think we really need to be approving what color it is. I don't view that as a significant change. I'm okay if that's what Sean is fine with. I'm not saying we necessarily need to take it out, but I don't want this board to get into a cycle of having, to approve every minor change when really it's only significant changes.
So currently the fence is painted, it's not really painted, it's a mismatch of colors, and the fence is supposed to blend harmoniously with the environment. So that is on Stan to enforce.
Yep.
I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree it should be painted and every effort should be done to make it blend in. I just don't know if we need to be picking the color.
Okay, so
And Sean has agreed to paint it. He chose the evergreen or the fabric, so that's why I put it in writing, but we don't mind taking it out.
So if we took out condition number 2, and only basically said that there was going to be a berm on that side, because that's what originally he asked for, is a berm on the blue lot side. The other thing that's here is a fire lane. Is that something that wasn't approved in the conditions?
That was under the fire chief's recommendations when it was being renewed, is he wanted fire lanes to be maintained. So to ensure the 50-foot buffer from the boundary line to inside within the fence, I discussed it with Sean Gerard, is if you maintain a fire lane of 35 feet within inside the fence, that will give you a 50-foot buffer. But nothing can be put inside that area.
So, and nothing can be put there anyway,
Right.
correct? So no structures or whatever can be within that 50 feet.
Because originally he proposed to put Conex boxes and stuff, and I just, that becomes more cumbersome. So the fire lane, if he maintains it, which is easily visible to inspect and ensure. And again, blocking the fire lane is a $700 fine too, so that's why they wanted to label it as fire lane.
So I tend to agree with Brian that we're kind of going after the fact, and these are pretty much addressed in the conditions.
Yeah.
They're up to you to determine, and I think there's enough meat in the conditions that we have that you can do this without adding these to this addendum. Are you comfortable with that?
If the board is, I just want to make sure that it's clear that these are the terms that Sean has agreed to, and as a town, we are going to uphold that intention.
So for number 3, if we removed 2 and 3 from this, you feel that there's enough in his current permit to enforce that fire lane?
There is, yeah.
Okay.
Because the original condition was approved based on the fire chief's recommendation, so he needs to maintain
Okay.
those fire lanes.
Does that add up to the 60 feet that he has to have on the Burlock side because of the well?
I'm not sure that it does. The 35 and the berm doesn't add to 60 feet, does it?
But there's 15 feet, so 35 and 15 is the 50 foot.
And then the rule outside is actually 60,
It
right?
is, the rule outside is 60 feet, so
Yes,
that
it's
becomes the edge, and again, that's a different fire lane, but the berm is part of that 60 feet, so he still has, behind the building, he doesn't intend to store anything behind it anymore, so that's maintaining that fire lane.
And my other concern is that I don't want him to be putting the berm in just to raise the grade of the property.
Right.
So the grade stays as is.
Correct.
The berm goes in, and
The only reason why Sean at this point put the berm on the blue lot side is Chris Corey wanted the berm because he didn't want to see the back of the building during the winter time. So, and we specified the evergreen trees, and that's, Sean's planting spruce trees there, so.
okay. I know Merrill's got his hand up, so we'll let Merrill talk about
Yep.
this, I guess.
So this is the first that I've heard, and I haven't had a chance to analyze, but listening to, I think, Stan's presentation, he's said on this piece of paper that you have in front of you, the plan that you're going to approve tonight, that slopes are between 1.7 and 2.1. And I'm pretty confident you fought all along to say the slopes had to be 2.1 or better than that. But I thought, is that what you just said a few moments ago? 1.7 to 2.1 are the variations of slope that are there?
I'm not going to speak for Stan, but I think he said that they were going to be brought from 1.7 to 2 to 1.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so
Understood.
that was my interpretation, and I
I mean, I believe at the last meeting when we talked to Sean, it was discussed that they were gonna bring the grades up to
2 to 1. That's
So
correct.
that means they, in theory, they'd be moving the fence inwards. Because that would be to ground level, for example, on the westerly side, or is that to the top of the stone wall, which is currently where we're...
I believe Stan talked to him and said it's going to be from ground level on the westerly side up beyond the fence, and I don't know what's going to happen with the fence. That's kind of up to Stan to figure out, I guess. How?
In conversation with Sean, there's a section of fence he's obviously gonna move. There's one piece that he's confident that he can, because there's enough distance between the stone wall and the fence at the beginning of the corner on the Carroll side, that he's able to accomplish the 2-to-1 slope in that section that's fairly close already. But as you go to the north side, he's already admitted he's probably gonna have to lift the fence and move it in more. So He's prepared to do that.
So there's no compromise of the 2-to-1 slope.
No.
The fence, I have a concern if you put it in print that you're accepting a metal fence when your ordinance, which is law, says a wooden fence blending harmoniously. I don't know what further compromise that adds to your position, but you have a law that says wooden fence, black and white.
But
Until-
they've removed number 2, so the fence doesn't apply.
I'm sorry, who removed number 2?
We just
The
discussed.
fence doesn't apply, they're removing number 2. The only one that's gonna remain is number 1.
So the only thing that the only thing
Again, I
that,
didn't have a chance to review this or hear about this until now.
so
I
the
don't
only
understand.
thing, the only thing that we're going to, the board has discussed it, and it looks like the only thing that the board will approve tonight is an addendum which addresses the berm. It has at least a height of 8 feet in height, shall be constructed and maintained along the easterly border of the property for a minimum of 140 feet, with trees planted in a staggering arrangement to maintain natural buffer and a proper runoff. If trees die, they should be replaced. In addition to conditional use number 9, shall make provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping which provide protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of development.
So on the westerly side, I didn't hear the wording that the trees must achieve a 15-foot depth. I heard staggered, I heard 15 feet of height, but I didn't hear 15, that the type of tree and the way they're going to be arranged is going to create that 15-foot depth. So that's another concern I have.
So that was part of the condition number 2 that we kind of didn't want to include.
Well, I'm just saying these things. I don't want to have it opposing what's already in other permits that are stated to be approved permits. The last is I still don't know how anything's been reconciled between the original 2020 permit and what is currently going on, because there's supposed to be a berm on Main G Road that was in the original application, was accepted as an original permit, and no one has talked about the removal of that berm and the fact that that was a condition of permitting that existed in the front of the property. And so I'm not sure that you're neglecting it, but you're trying to imply that it's adequate for the front to be sloped 2-to-1 and to get 15 feet of height, and it sounds like 15 feet of depth of plantings. However, your sign permit says there's a berm on Rangy Road. That's pretty black and white.
I don't think that we understand that there are things that are still violations. There are still violations that still exist on this property. And that's a stand enforcement issue, I believe. We're only allowing this berm as an after-the-fact thing since,
So this is not changing other conditions, you're simply allowing the addition of the berm.
the only thing we are allowing today, changing today, is we're allowing a berm to be on the easterly side of the property.
Thank you.
Easterly.
The berm,
Yeah, sorry.
the berm and the trees being planted along the front or the roadside of the fence. And they are all going to be staggered, and it's going to be a minimum of 25 feet to 35 feet by the way they're staggered. So, but that's what it is the berm, and to make sure that there's an evergreen presence in front of the fence along the roadside, as well as on the westerly side of Carroll's property. So that's what this agreement will accomplish.
And I think it would be smart to say the Brulot property, not just property, because that's what you're talking, is along the Brulot property, right?
But it
So
says
the
the
easterly
easterly side.
boundary.
We gotta break the habits of the old ways where it used to refer to the Gilpatrick's property all the way to the Lane's property to this. So it's the easterly boundary, and it's the westerly boundary, or the south boundary, or the north boundary. So I believe
So it's the whole way of the property?
No,
Or wants it to go all the way?
140 feet on the easterly side, 180 feet on the westerly side.
But you have said a different thing than what Aaron has said about what's being approved tonight. And my concern
I
is,
want to make it very clear what number one means. Number one means he's got approval from the planning board to place an 8-foot high berm on the easterly side of the property, which is blue lots, for 140 feet. And on that berm, he's got to stagger evergreen trees, which he's agreed to plant blue spruce. And also, he has agreed to plant evergreen spruce in the front along the roadside. And then he's also agreed to plant in a staggered manner on the westerly side, which is the Carroll side of the park.
but you're not asking the planning board to approve those last two statements.
So,
You're only asking for approval of the blue lot berm and its plan.
Okay, I appreciate what you're saying, Merrill, but number one is specifically for the east,
Right,
the
I
north,
understand.
this
And-
Stan, actually,
Yes.
it all, only, condition number one only says the easterly side, easterly boundary.
and it needs to add the westerly boundaries, because
I-
the trees are supposed to be all the way around. But actually, the original conditional had buffers on the Carroll
I
side.
agree, I think we should leave the buffers alone, other than putting this in, and it is your job to make sure that is done. The state law says that you need to make sure that it can't be seen from the road, and the
The state
conditional,
law also dictates there needs to be a fence.
and the conditional use that we have approved states that there need to be trees. So I think you have what you need to do, what you gotta do on the other conditions. I think I'd like to see us just approve the berm tonight and move
And
forward.
I'm not defending Sean, but Sean is making a humongous effort to turn things around. He understands his errors, he wants to move forward, and I think with more communications, we can accomplish more than we are going to sit here and be bitter and go back and forth and start creating some legal fees this town really cannot afford.
The irony is, Mr. Brulot is considered a sensitive fashion or problem where a berm was considered something to hide his property's view of 41 Rangy Road, but the berm in the front, which was removed and is yet in the condition, is not important enough to the remaining people who pass by Rangy Road. And so that's sort of it was a very interesting comment that was made, and I just wanted to say, I appreciate the trees, I appreciate the slope being correct, but there is still a berm that is listed in there, and I'm just hoping that you're not going to take that out and somehow stating we're approving trees if that's what you end up doing. If you're just doing the berm, then it's black and white, the only thing you're approving right now.
I think at this point, we're only approving the berm on the easterly side of the property. Stan has what he needs to do to take care of the front, and the westerly side is already approved in the conditional use permit, so,
Sean is also aware of some of the other things he's done without approval, and he's wanting to fix those, but we don't want to put them in writing now until we can discuss the pros and cons and the DEP effects of some of the things. So I didn't bring those up. Sean doesn't want me to bring them up. I have discussed them with Aaron a little bit to get his feedback. So again, he's going to restore some of the damages he's done. He's aware of that, but one step at a time. I think we're making some really huge progress here in the last few months, over the last several years.
okay. So, anyone else have any thoughts on this, or how to proceed?
I agree, we have to remove the redundancy, it's just gonna end up being conflicting, so might as well make it simple, clear, And then if we need to add something, we'll do an amendment, but there's no need to put everything all in one if it's just gonna cause confusion.
I agree. I think we were asked to approve a berm. We approved the berm. And then we need to have faith that Stan's gonna do his job, do what he needs to do his job, and we provided him the tools to do it, so. Alright. Is there a motion for this?
A motion to approve the amendment under the conditions that item 2 and 3 be removed.
Second.
Moving and seconded. Any discussion? The only discussion I have is it okay that I sign it? Or do you all wanna sign it, or?
I'm fine if you want to sign it.
Okay.
Brian, can you repeat that?
The motion is that we approve the amendment under the condition that item 2 and 3 be removed. And that Aaron can sign it for us.
So, there's a motion on floor and a second. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous? Okay. Let's see. I guess our next meeting is May 1st. Stan, did you have any other things regarding ordinances or whatever that you want to discuss tonight, or are you good for tonight?
There is something tonight.
I know you got some stuff that's probably coming down the pipe, but,
Oh, yes, we do.
okay?
I will be, I don't know if you guys noticed, I'll be sending emails out so that it gives you some heads up, and I'm welcoming any feedback or thoughts or questions, because that helps me and define things and make it clearer, so.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll make the motion to adjourn. Brian seconded, all in favor? Okay, thank you and have a good night.